everyone, it's Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and today I'm sharing with you some more index card a day cards that I did. I'm not fully committed to the 60 days of this challenge, but I figured I was already doing the ATCs, and so I might as well do a few of these too. And so that's what I did. This would be days 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the index card a day challenge, which is offered by daisyyellow.com, and it's a challenge that has been around for a long time. Basically, it's very similar to our artist trading card a day challenge that we're doing in our Art Joy of Sharing group and have been doing that for several years. Just a little bit larger size and very flimsy paper. And I wasn't going to do these, and then I thought, and then I saw, I think it was Mary Beth Shaw on our live stream say, well, if you don't know what to do with them, you could just tear them up and use them as collage. You're just making patterns, right? So you could use parts of it as collage. And so I decided to go ahead and do a few of them with the concept that I didn't have to be committed to keeping them forever. And, you can bind them in a book or whatever, but the idea is that you want to develop a daily art practice, just something little every single day to keep you going creatively and to keep your energy and mojo up, even if you are too busy to do anything else. Maybe you don't have time to work on something large or even as big as an art journal page, but you can do something very small like this. So that is the reason that I am just going ahead and supporting this for as long as I can. I haven't left for my trip yet, so I can still do these at home and fill in with a few of those, as well as our artist trading cards. So these are the 3x5 index cards. They have writing on the back, or not writing, but lines on the back, and then they have a plain side, and I'm just using the plain side. For this first one, I used these Dr. P.H. Martin's concentrated watercolors, and these things are concentrated. They are intense. I think they're really meant to blend out with water, but I use them pretty much pure hard strength. And I started out with a stencil from Stencil Girl. I love Stencil Girl as a company. I think they're awesome. So, and they've got great designs designed by real artists. So I like to use them. And I laid the stencil down. I wanted it to stay white. I wanted the pattern, but I didn't put any pixie spray on it and stick it down, which is what I should have done, because when I went over with water to blend with the brush, most of the pattern got wrecked because the watercolor went underneath. You have to be a little bit more patient, and of course, I'm not often patient. I like the watery look of stencils with watercolors, but I just would have liked a little bit more of the pattern to come through. Just only a little bit did. So then I added some collage over the top because, I'm a collage artist. And I also used a white Posca pen. And you can tell if you look at my white Posca pen, I'm doing a second application. Usually that pen, it's an acrylic paint pen, and it's very opaque, and it will usually remain white. But these watercolors are so incredibly pigmented that they just turned they turned the color they turned the white lavender. Basically, it just soaked into it while the paint in the pen was still wet on the card. It just soaked in, and that's fine. I'm fine with it. I just did want to point out these are crazy strong watercolors from P.H. Martin's. I'm trying to get out some stuff I don't use very often, and so that's the reason I grabbed those. So I also added some words with the stencil. It's kind of I think the stencil is called Teenager maybe, or something like that, or Teenage Talk or Teen Talk or something like that from Stencil Girl Products. I think it was designed by Carolyn Dubie. And it's just all the things that teenagers might say, or that we still say, even if we're not teenagers sometimes. And so I stenciled the words, and I went around with the white pen, and even then the white pen turned the color of the watercolor, even though the watercolor's been dried. So If you guys have ever used dilution sprays, that they're made by Ranger, they're really intense colored sprays, and they have the same properties. If you put something over the top, you can put layers and layers of white gesso over the top, and those intense pigments still come through. This is the same type of a situation. So that was for day 2. Day 3, I decided to use some distress ink. I hardly ever get these out. These are little 1x1 size tiny ink pads, and I have a Ranger silicone matte on my desk. It has some great properties for filming. It's clear-ish, but it also has that kind of matte finish, and so my lights that I have over the desk don't glare on it. That's the reason I like using it. But it also, you can use it as, like a regular craft pad. It can be used with the distress inks by, putting the ink on and spraying. And I was going to do multiple layers on this. I wanted to use a stencil, so I grabbed a different stencil. And after the first layer of pressing it through the stencil, I liked what it looked like, so I just left it. It's 3 different colors, like a blue, a teal, and a lighter blue. I don't know the exact colors. They're the distress ink colors, there's tons of them. It had bubbles, the stencil had bubbles, and it turned out really neat looking, kind of watery looking, because the index card is absorbent, and so it absorbed a lot of the water, but it didn't squish out, and I ended up getting a good impression of the stencil. So I thought that was cool. So I decided to do some collage over the top. It reminded me of fish because it had the bubbles and the watery look. And so I am just cutting out little fish shapes out of scraps from my desk. And I've got some matte medium, that's the Deco Art one, using it up because I want to go back to my Liquitex. I ran out of Liquitex, ordered more, so I have a new one, but I just wanted to use up some of these other matte mediums that I have, because they're just laying around not being used. So this is the Deco Art one. It comes in a tube, and I just squirted a little bit out onto a piece of scratch paper, and I'm applying these things, all these little bits and pieces that I'm cutting out, with a brush, and just kind of pressing them down so they'll be good and stuck to this index card. And it's all scraps from my desk, all little bits of pieces of paper from my desk, which is going to get cleaned off, I swear. It is. I put some little fins on some of them. That one big orange one has that white that was part of the pattern of the paper, and I just think it looks exactly like a gill, where the fish has that little opening on the side of their face that they breathe the water through and get their oxygen somehow by magic. And so it's not magic, it's biology. But it was in a perfect place, and I thought that was cool. I added a little bit of shadow underneath them with a Stabilo All pencil, and blending that with a water brush, of course. And then I used an acrylic paint pen in white and an acrylic paint pen in black to make some eyeballs. And then I'm going to use my white acrylic paint pen to make on some of them some fins or some stripes or things like that. Just little extra illustration-y things. Just to make a cute little card. I went around the outside edge of the card with that same dark blue indigo color that I used on the bottom section to, I like edges. I like edges on my cards. It's just the way I am. So that was day number 3. Day number 4. This is a stencil. This was a recent stencil club stencil mashup. It has four different patterns on it, and they're almost perfectly sized for index cards. So I decided to put that one on, and it's got some circles. I did it with black acrylic ink, and then I'm just taking some little scraps and cutting them out and adding little bits of collage in the holes, around the outside of the holes, cutting them by hand, by eyeball. I didn't measure anything. I'm just free-forming this kind of an abstract look here and laying them over. I even am using the outsides of the cutouts too. So it starts looking pretty cool and pretty interesting. Some people would be very obsessed with making them exactly perfect, but that wasn't what I was going for at all. Didn't want them to be perfect, wanted them to be a little bit wonky. So then I'm going to glue all this down with that same matte medium that is still on my desk that I squirted out. I did these all at once. I did all 4 of these at once, even though for different days I did them all at once. Just sat down and made several, trying to get things done in advance of when I'm leaving. So you kind of have to do that sometimes when you're a video maker. I know people who make videos who do their entire month's worth of videos all in one day. They do all their filming in one day, and then they do the editing the next day, and then they don't have to worry for the rest of the month. They can live their life. I don't do it that way normally, but because I know that I'm going to travel and because I know that there are daily challenges this month, I am pre-doing some of these. So I glued all that down with the matte medium, and then that last little bit, the kind of highlight spot, I glued it with a glue stick. And then I have a little die cut here that has some spirals, and I snipped off one of the spirals, and I'm going to put that over the kind of, I guess you'd say it's the focal image of this card, the area that your eye is drawn to. And I'm going to add a little bit of shading with a Stabilo All pencil, and then also some kind of reddish and greenish other water-soluble pencils, which are water-soluble graphite from Derwent. I started out doing just the black, and I thought, you know, I want a little bit of color. So I used a kind of burgundy reddish one and then kind of an olivey green one as well, and added a little bit more color here and there. I also went around the edge with a black ink pad because I like things to be framed in. I just do. It's just a thing. So here I am with the water-soluble graphite pencils from Derwent. I think they're called Graphitint or Graphtint or something like that. It's graphite in different colors. They're all pretty muted colors. They're not any bright ones. You could also use watercolor pencils, or you could use just watercolors with a brush to do this. So I could have done that, but the Graphtint ones are already on my desk. I gave that a dry, and then I added a quote from a Tim Holtz sticker pack that has the snarky quotes in it. This one says, "I didn't mean to push all your buttons. I was just looking for mute." I think that's funny. So I stuck that down, cut it apart. That particular sticker book, they are quite large. And so I cut it apart and layered it on there. And that is day 4. So there you go. The push and the all are kind of wonky, but the whole thing's kind of wonky. So whatever. The next one is day 5, and I had this little cute chicken that Peg had sent me a while ago, and it's just cute. And I was trying to use it on an ATC the other day during the live stream, but it was too big. It was too tall, and I wanted that long, skinny legs with the striped stockings. I think that's hilarious. So I decided to use it on an index card. It was still laying out from when I had taken it out to try to use it on a ATC. I would have had to make much shorter legs, and it just isn't the same without those tall, skinny legs. So I grabbed some different scraps in yellows and oranges, which are the color, of course, of the stuff on the little, it's not a die cut, it's some type of printed something that has been cut out, and I had to cut a little bit more of it off. She didn't cut it completely out. So then I laid out some pieces of paper. I got my glue stick, and I started sticking down all this collage paper to make a background. The one thing that does annoy me about these index cards is they're so flimsy and floppy that they don't lay down flat, and that kind of bugs me a little bit. I'm constantly like pulling them and trying to bend them and get them to lay down flat, but they don't. But of course, they're lightweight paper, so I could tear them up if I want to and use them in my larger collages. I could. So once my background was done, I trimmed off the edges, the overlapping stuff, to make it back down to the size of the index card. You can always trim off excess collage anytime. And then I'm going to use some acrylic paint in Naples Yellow, which is a really cool, I consider it not yellow but a neutral. But it is yellow if you really wanted to go into it. And I'm just kind of blending out some edges, you know, because I've got those different panels of pieces of paper, and I sometimes like to just finger paint out some edges. And also I had gotten a little bit of black ink on the lightest yellow one, which was bugging me, so I covered it up with that. And I went around the outside edges with the black ink again. And then I decided to do a little bit of stenciling. So I grabbed another Stencil Girl stencil and I used dark brown, like a very, very deep, I think it's Van Dyke brown acrylic paint to do that, because that one little piece, I know it kind of looks like it's yellow with black on top, but it's not. It's dark brown. So I wanted to go with the dark brown. I also used my finger and went around the edges kind of over the black and added some of that dark brown on the edges. And then I'm just going to glue my little chicken lady on there with some of this sponge glue box sponge thing. When you have something that's got really skinny bits, that's a pretty good thing to use. And then I'm going to do some shading around the edge. When I stick something on there like that that's already pre-done, I like to blend the edges by using shadowing. So I'm going to use a dark brown Pitt Artist brush pen to go around the edges of that little cutout piece, and some water to blend it, and then it just makes it look like it's integrated into the card more rather than just being stuck on there. I don't like that look. I like it to be part of the composition. So doing shadows and highlights makes a real difference. I hope you are enjoying this video. If you are, or if you are doing iCads and want to tell me about it, leave me a comment or a question below. Of course, thumbs up are always appreciated. And you guys can subscribe if you haven't already. We're getting close to 20,000 subscribers, and there'll be a giveaway when we hit 20,000. So, you know, I encourage everyone to subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on your notification bells so that you know when there's a new video out. I try to do them every 2 to 3 days, and that's what I'm trying to get done this month. Hopefully I'll do it. So I also added some highlights with the white Posca pen. The graphic had like a little flower that was hanging off the edge of this little chicken lady's hat. So I put that back on. I had cut it off earlier. So put that on because I knew it wouldn't fit the way it was. Then I just added a sticker that says, "I had a lovely time." And it's kind of an off-white color with brown, and that's the reason that I wanted to use them from that pack. It's another one from Ranger. So that's it for me for today. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.